Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Soya and Baila's World Tonight. It is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. And since this is our second voyage on Soya and Baila's World, we are not doing a live radio program, but Baila, podcast program. I'm used to radio already, but anyway, let me welcome our two hostesses. Baila, say hello to everybody.
Hey, how are you? How is everyone doing tonight? I'm
Soya.
sure just
Hi.
fine, hopefully.
Hi,
Well, with
everyone.
the with the news that's been going on, which we're going to talk about soon, everyone is reeling at this point.
Well, there are two pieces of news, but I want to first introduce our special guest tonight. Tonight we have a special program. Everybody heard that. I think you're all aware that Israel, by its Supreme Court, has now decided to begin drafting Haredi, or extreme right-wing religious Jews, into the army, something that is unprecedented, to my knowledge, in Israeli history. Now, we have a very special guest tonight. His name is Rabbi Sensei Gary Moskowitz. He is a rabbi. He is a grand martial arts, multidiscipline martial arts grandmaster. He is also founder of the Jewish National Guard and co-founder of the UCC United Clergy Coalition. He's been widely featured on television and radio programs from coast to coast, as well as in Israel too. Welcome, Rabbi Sensei Gary Moskowitz.
Thank you
Gary,
very
you with
much.
us?
Glad to
I
be here. Thank you.
May I call you Gary?
Of course, of course.
Okay. Now, there are a couple of things that I just wanted to point out before, little tidbits of news. Baila and Soya, I'm wondering about the assassination attempt of
Now,
Trump.
that's what I was going for when I first started saying that everyone is reeling right now from what has happened
Was
on
this
the
a
attempt on
planned?
on President Trump's life.
I want to hear from you girls, Baila and Soya, my hostesses. Was this a planned assassination attempt, or was this something just one guy, one lunatic that went crazy and did it all on his own, or was this again pre-planned? Was there something going
So,
on with Biden? Soya, would you
so
like to?
there's a lot of speculation coming in from different people, and the problem is every time you say something, people start saying, oh, you're conspiring. It's a conspiracy theory, and there's more that's going to be coming in. They're already discovering a lot of different things. And it's crazy because this young man, there are videos and people saying that he was spotted on the roof and why it was a slanted roof. That's why, the Secret Service wasn't on that roof, but you can actually go and see on the White House and on other roofs, Secret Service always go on it. It's irrelevant that it's on a slant or not. I mean, that's a part of the security that you're going on any roof, irrelevant of what angle it's on. And so there's a lot of other things coming in. They also killed him like right away. So, people are saying, well, they killed him, the shooter, the sniper, because they want to make sure that he doesn't talk. And it's going to come out. More stuff is going to come out. Maybe his family didn't even know what was going on.
You know what you just pointed
There was
out?
a video also of him. There's also a video of him that he was doing a commercial. How did they find him? Somebody, if I believe, I do believe, I may be wrong. If you show me the evidence, if you bring me information and you show me that I'm wrong and enlighten me, then fine. But I'm of a strong belief, based on some of the stuff that has come out so far, that he was recruited somehow. His family was not aware of this. He was a victim in this. They somehow managed to convince him, because that's what you could do to a young mind. That doesn't necessarily make him a good person or a bad person. Of course, he's a bad person because he shot, Donald Trump. But I could tell you this right now. There is a lot more to it. It's going to come out, and I'm not believing that this guy was totally innocent in it, and that this wasn't somehow conspired, and this didn't come out from the Biden administration somehow, some sort of a connection.
So in your view, Baila, you think that this is a conspiracy. This is not one man working alone. And what you had just said about the shooter being shot on site, kind of reminiscent of when Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald right on site, right at the moment, as soon as he saw him, almost like as if to shut him up after he had assassinated President Kennedy. Baila, your take on it.
So, I'm big on conspiracy theories. I mean, I don't always express my views, but one thing I know for certain is that something like this could not have happened one man working alone. Yeah, it took somebody very disturbed to actually want to do it, but that he acted alone? No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for 1 second. How is it possible where he was surrounded by Secret Service and police that he wasn't stopped? In fact, there are witnesses that say that they were screaming, "There's a man on the roof." People saw him and nobody came over to help. No one came over to do anything. Wasn't until he took that shot. And by the way, he was very lucky. Donald Trump was extremely lucky. Had he have turned his head just a millimeter, it would have been over. There's no question that God was on his side. In fact, I've been reading posts on social media where even atheists are now saying that God protected Donald Trump.
I agree on that.
There's no other explanation.
Yeah, and we do have, I'm going to get to Rabbi Gary in a moment, and we do have unanimity apparently between our two lovely hostesses. Now, Rabbi Gary, in addition to being a rabbi and a martial arts grandmaster, he has also been involved in security. He has trained, he's been a police, he is a former New York City police officer. He has trained members of the New York City Police, of the IDF, and of the Shin Bet, which is the top security in Israel as well. Rabbi Gary, your perspective from a professional view as a security and highly trained security worker and analyst, as a police officer and trainer.
Sure.
What happened here, Gary, Rabbi Gary?
Well, I think it's really too early to discuss conspiracy theories here, because we can talk all day and people can talk about us, we can talk about them. I think you missed the main issue. The main issue is what we see right in front of us. There was a total abysmal failure by law enforcement, by Secret Service, by state police, by local police, by everybody concerned of protecting Donald Trump. But this is not just for Donald Trump. I did an interview recently with NBC TV regarding sounding the alarm that law enforcement in general is not up to par to protect us in terrorism around the country. You can look at Uvalde, what happened with those kids. Kids were being shot in a classroom. There were 400 cops watching it. They didn't do nothing until about 20 kids were dead already. You have Parkland massacre in when they came in and started shooting kids in Florida, and the cops were running in the other direction. You know, they ran away here. I mean, I can go on and on about so many different situations here. There's really a serious failure in law enforcement. Whether he was hired by Iranian services or not, that'll come later on. There's no point in discussing it now. We don't have enough information here. I do conclude, just from experience, I don't believe he was alone either, but my belief is meaningless at this point. But one thing is that we have to discuss is that the breakdown in law enforcement was pretty clear. First of all, Donald Trump is being threatened by an Iranian assassination attempt from some of our investigative services here.
Yeah.
They knew this already. So they claimed they actually gave him enhanced security. We say in Hebrew, how much more? So if that's enhanced security, my God, you could imagine how bad it would have been first. Second of all here, as everyone knows in basic security, basic police, if you go to like 3 days in the police academy, you know about securing a perimeter. Everyone knows this. They did not secure the perimeter properly. There was a clear shot. They didn't check it. That was the first problem. The second problem is, you're not going to believe this here, but reports came out recently that some of the police officers who were assigned from locally were actually working in the building at the time. They were using it as a part of headquarters here to work. And right above them, it's like a joke, right above them, there was a terrorist shooting. So that was the first problem. The second problem is people saw him. He was a person of interest 25 minutes, actually a couple of hours before.
That's right.
But 25 minutes before, they had him in their sights. People were complaining. They think there's a guy with a gun. They told the police called up, and they said over and over again, you know, there's something going on. But there was no connection, like what happened in Uvalde. There were 3 different agencies. They weren't talking to each other. They weren't on the same frequencies, basically. No one knew what was going on. No one knew how to, all they had to do was make one phone call to someone who was on stage, get Donald Trump down, and that would have been it. He would have been saved. Everyone would have been saved. Get everyone down, shut everything down. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's gross incompetence. How could people claim they want to be Secret Service? They claim they jumped on top of him. Well, guess what? They know nothing about bullets here. Those bullets can go right through each one of those people and hit three nuns behind. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
Hey,
another
wait,
thing
wait,
I was
wait,
wondering
Rabbi
about.
Gary.
Yeah.
I had never heard that. I had assumed that if a person parks himself on top of you, the bullet isn't going to go through one body right into the next body underneath.
It could.
He's shooting a car. He's shooting an AR-15.
An
Those
AR-15.
bullets
Yeah,
and-
it depends. Exactly, depends on what you're shooting. I
And we
mean,
don't know if
this
they were
guy,
metal-
this guy was well prepared.
Yeah, and we don't know what kind of with the velocity of the bullets
And the
were,
ricochet.
but many bullets could go all over the place and go through 3 or 4 people. That's the first thing, especially a 357 that I used to carry
Depends
myself,
where
a
it
Magnum gun, and it can pierce a car engine. Okay, that's the
Is that
first.
the kind of gun that Eastwood used to carry?
Yeah, that's why they used
Dirty
to call me,
Harry's gun.
they used to call me Dirty Hesh in the precinct. But anyway,
Okay.
all
right.
Aside from that, but the other point is that how stupid could they be? They have bulletproof shields that you can handhold carry. Every Secret Service should have had a bulletproof shield. So when something happens, they got them down. All they have to do is open up the shield right away, 2 or 3 people, and no bullets can come through at that point. Yet they didn't have it. How can they not have it? Further, how stupid can they possibly be, but not having drones? I was at a wedding the night before, okay? Actually, Sunday night. At my niece's wedding, they had drones just to take pictures. How could
Drones
that not-
are those unmanned sort of helicopters that fly around like a computer taking photos. Am I
It's
correct?
so common today. They sell them in Best Buy. They sell them all over the place here. They could have had it for a few $100s. They could have had a drone out there taking pictures, getting real-time information. They would have spotted him.
Seeing the entire area and seeing if there was any vulnerability, if somebody was there that shouldn't be there.
They could have, and further, they should have had people in the crowd. They didn't have people, at least I believe they didn't have people because no one reacted. Had they had people spread out through that crowd, the minute that shooting started, they could have responded here and shot him right away. Now, the other cop, the other Secret Service who did shoot him, did the right thing. Why? Because it wasn't like Lee Harvey Oswald and it wasn't like that at all because he was an imminent threat. He was actually firing and he was killing people here. He had to be taken out immediately. So that Secret Service guy did the right thing here. They had him in handcuffs like they did with JFK, and then they shot him. Yeah, that's clearly a conspiracy, I believe. But right now there are so many violations of protocol. The Secret Service is, you know why they call it the Secret Service? Because their affiliates are secret, basically. Here, it's coming out right now. They didn't protect Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been asking for more security. In fact, JFK Jr., who's also running for president, they didn't give him any protection services.
RFK.
Yeah, RFK, right. Although he lost 2 people in his own family, including the president of the United States and Bobby Kennedy. They were lost. How could they not give him Secret Service here? And by the way, Secret Service is not so special. I work with Secret Service. Some of them were my classes here. They were heavy. They couldn't move. And there's a big diversity equity program going on now. They're going to hire women, people of color, people who are transgender, whatever it is here. They're not going on merit. Same thing with police agencies across the country here. We're not getting a qualified person. Listen, I don't care if you're a man or a woman or if you think you're born a chicken. I mean, that's your choice. If you want to clock.
Well, like Soya says, I'm a refrigerator.
Whatever you identify as.
Right, but I want you to be able to do the job. Same thing, if I'm in the hospital and I want a doctor to work with me, I want him to know that he passed the medical boards, that he passed his tests, he knows what he's doing. Not that he got in because he was a chicken. I can't handle that.
All
now,
right.
so there were
Gary,
many
that's for another program. All right. So I hear what you're saying. There were a lot of go ahead, Baila.
I'm questioning. The Secret Service did spot the shooter 20 minutes before.
Right.
Right.
So what happened in those 20 minutes?
Lunch break?
Even before that, it was a cop. They claimed it's not clear what happened now. I don't have enough information, but someone said a cop went to the roof, actually, either was afraid, the guy pointed a gun at him and ran away, or he claims he didn't see anything worthwhile reporting. It's not clear. But according to some reports, there was a police officer actually made it up to the roof.
Right. So which really begs the question, and that's where conspiracy theories come about. Was this planned?
Well, here's the bigger conspiracy. I'm looking at from a different angle here. You're not going to really find out because they're going to spend.
No, we're not going to find out. That's for sure.
I'll tell you why. Because they're going to cover up their failures so much, it's going to look like a bigger conspiracy because they're going to I worked in the police department. We spend more time covering up all the failures, right, and false reporting sometimes. It became a full-time job to do this. So I'm saying they're going to cover up so many things, make up so many stories to defend themselves, and it's going to look even worse, more conspiratorial. So we don't know. We're going to have to wait. But right now, I'm concerned as a Jew living in America, living here in New York, with the largest population of Jewish people outside Israel here, that law enforcement is not able to protect us. They won't. And I can tell you firsthand, I work
Hey,
with
Gary, before we get to that's going to be another week's subject.
Okay,
But tonight
sure.
we have another subject that we had prepared. But before we get to our regular subjects, I think we have it's pretty unanimous that it's more than a single individual working on his own. I think that's what we've come to a conclusion. Although Rabbi Sensei Gary is saying we don't know yet. Let's hold off. Let's reserve judgment till some more of the facts come out, until we get more information on it. On that note, I want to first say tonight we are sponsored by our usual sponsor, Velocity Capital Group. Velocity Capital is a financing company. If you have a small business and you need money, in fact, up to as much as $1 million, and you need it fast for inventory, for sales, for purchases, it doesn't matter what it's for bank dealings, whatever it is, any kind of business operations that you need your funds for, and you need it fast, and your bank may have either turned you down or they just can't possibly process a loan for you, call up Jay at Velocity Capital Group. They can get you literally, and I know this personally, up to $1 million within 24 hours. I said that again, up to $1 million approved within 24 hours for your business.
Tell them
For
Bummy
all
sent
of
you.
your business needs. You don't have to tell them that, but it's okay. Their phone number, Velocity Capital Group, is 833-824-3863. Again, 833-824-3863, or you can contact them and look them up on their website, which is Velocity, Velocity, Velocity CG for Capital Group, velocitycg.com. Velocity Capital Group, your place for financing for your business, for all your financing needs. And also, like I say, remember, when your bank may say no, Velocity will say yes. On that note, Soya, let's do your regular shout outs as you used to do on the radio show. And then Baila will do her shout outs. And after that, we're going to get to the topic of the night.
Dove and Shani hiking.
They are in Israel right now, and we wish them all the
They're
success in the
visiting
world.
the troops,
And they're up in the north doing wonderful
northern
things as
border.
always.
And we're sending them our love, and we wish them all the best. Of course, all the local community boards, Assemblyman Lester Chang, Assemblyman Simcha Eichenstein, and his staff, his wonderful staff, Dove Cohn, and everyone else over there at Eichenstein's office. And of course, my favorite councilwoman, Ina Vernikov, Bummy's favorite councilman, his best buddy, Kalman Yeager.
Who is going to be an assemblyman soon.
Very soon. He's
moving up to the New York State
taking over
Assembly.
Helene Weinstein's seat. And then, of course, and I already mentioned Assemblyman Lester Chang, Inspector Richie Taylor, 6th Precinct, Community Liaisons and Affairs Officers.
Excuse me, he's not inspector, deputy chief now.
Deputy Chief. How come it says
I have to change it.
you have
Deputy
to
Chief.
change? You're giving me an old cheat.
My
Okay.
apologies. I will modify it.
Very unprofessional.
Sorry.
Don't let it happen again.
You keep talking like that, I'm going to end up
Sergeant.
getting spanked by Baila later. Okay. go
You
ahead.
can only dream. Okay, Sergeant Wing Chen, James Jamin, and Detective Michael Rommel, my favorite detective, and of course the two new captains at the 6th Precinct, Ken Hararty and Christian Cheese. And of course,
And now we're going to get Baila, your shout outs for today.
entire NYPD, FDNY, DSNY. And I just want to tell you one thing, how remarkable the police and the firefighters, not just here in our community, but in other places. And I just want to say one thing, a reminder to people, make sure that you look inside your car no matter what when you're leaving. Just like you're concerned about your car, you're locking up, make sure you don't accidentally lock your child or an infant in there. We've had far too many. It's already the start of the summer, and we've had far too many tragedies. So on that note, Baila, take it away.
My shout out is to all the people in the world. I wish for a world where people will accept each other for who they are, what they are. And even if they don't agree, it's okay not to agree with one another. It's okay for me not to agree with you or not to agree with certain policies. But violence has no place amongst humanity. We don't live in the animal kingdom where animals kill to survive. Humans do not need to kill to survive. They don't. They do
No.
not. The way to survive in this world is by unity, is by peace, by getting along with one another. And we had some of it. We did not appreciate years ago. We thought, well, it could be a better world. You know what? I long for those days because what's going on today, where people are afraid of their own shadow, that's not okay. And there's no place in the world where we can say that, okay, that's a safe place. It's not.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, Baila.
I wish for the day where people will accept each other and agree to disagree. And my shout out is to this for the safety of the world and for every person to please be safe and be aware of your surroundings. And for those that have bad intentions, nah, it's
You
not
don't
worth
belong
it.
here.
Not worth it.
Amen, Baila.
Peace
I
and
think
unity.
civilized
Amen.
and civilized communication, civilized
Ah,
between
well,
people with differing
we think
opinions.
we're in a
Let's
civilized
agree to disagree.
world, but I don't know that it's as civilized as we would like it to be.
Well, let's hope that it can become
Let's
again.
hope for better times
We are
ahead.
very close to the messianic age, and I hope perhaps it can happen in a good way without more violence. Rabbi Gary, let's get to the big subject of tonight. As I had mentioned in my opener, it seems that if I correct, the Israeli Supreme Court has issued instructions now that Haredi young men, meaning extreme right-wing religious young people, young men, are to be drafted into the army. I believe that this is something rather unprecedented. It's something that a lot of people on the very left side of the aisle complain about and say, look, why does my son have to go fight and risk his life and sometimes give his life or limbs or whatever for our homeland while these young men are just sitting in their yeshivas or wherever it is, and they may be studying, which is fine, but they're not giving they're not, as far as they're concerned, they are not actually contributing to the welfare and the safety of the state and the people of Israel. I want to give our
Exemptions
listeners,
should only be for special.
I want to give our listeners the picture of both sides. Gary, I'd like you to first tell the people, Rabbi, what is it that the right-wing Haredi believe that they're accomplishing and why they don't feel they should be included in the army, and then tell us the opposite side as well. Let's start with side
And
A.
also, before that, I want to also understand that there was a landmark decision of a 9-judge panel that ruled unanimously that since June of 2023, when the last draft exemption law expired, that there is no legal mechanism existing to exempt Haredim from draft. And they must work to and the government must do whatever it can to enlist them immediately. So I'd like to address that as well, Gary.
Of course. Well, let me just give you the points of view that I've heard personally and researched over the years about what their feelings are. Now, by the way, there are different groups within the Haredi community. By the way, the word Haredi comes from the word trembling in Hebrew, or fear of God, and they're ultra secular, not secularist. They like to live separate, apart from everyone else. But anyway, Haredi Jews.
For our listeners, Gary, can you explain what Haredi means?
Already, they all stem from the Baal Shem Tov, a group of Hasidim, and there was a sub-group, Haredim. Some people call the Hasidim a subgroup of the Haredi, but either way, they are like Hasidim, but they're very ultra-right of the many different Hasidic groups, and they feel they cannot get involved with the secular community on any level. So even the Hasidim, they live among themselves, but they still work in the communities. A lot of them go to yeshiva as well, but they're not as they don't feel as compelled to be separate at all costs whatsoever, and not be. They use the word contaminated by other cultures, whether it's
Gary.
Israel,
I see Hasidic people, men,
Right.
on a regular basis, interacting in the business world and going
They're-
about business and doing everything
But
totally.
they're not Haredi. I'm sorry. That's what separates the Haredim from the Hasidim, groups of Hasidim.
Mhm.
The Haredi are an ultra sect within the Hasidic circle. Anyway, here's some of the points. Again, all of them don't feel the same way. So I always preface it by saying many feel this way or some feel this way, because I can't say all the Haredim feel this way. And I want to preface something else first before we use the word Haredi all the time. There
That's
are
a rabbi's hat.
Yeah, there are Haredim who are actually serving in the army. Some people don't know that, and they have to know this. Although the majority do not, and they're pushing their people, there are many Haredim on their own feel the need, which I believe also, by Jewish law, that they must serve in the Israeli army, and they want to serve in the Israeli army. So there are people who are serving already, and they're trying to push it further for different reasons why. So that's something positive. So it's not like no one's serving in the army and it can't be done. There are people serving already in the army, and believe me, they are very much welcome. Okay, but anyway,
Now, what you seem to be suggesting is that there is a split
right,
within the Haredim themselves.
100%, 100%. Many
So
of
what
them,
about those Haredim that don't serve and refuse to serve?
Well,
What is their
They're
argument? What
able-bodied.
is
I'm going to
able-
give you. I'll give you several of their arguments. The first argument that comes to mind is many Haredi feel, listen, we are serving in the army, Savot Hashem, where they're saying like this. Yes, you may have to do Hishtadlut, you do your thing, because that's what you do, but we're on a higher level, and we're going to manipulate God. We're going to go to God, and we're going to pray, and we're going to learn, and that's what's going to make God protect the Jewish people. In their
That's
mind,
what they right. That's how they look at it. They don't. I don't. They're not looking at it as, oh, we're staying away just to protect ourselves. They're looking at it from the perspective as they're going to
they are
pray
serving.
and learn Torah, and in that merit, God will help the soldiers who are out on the front lines.
But that also insinuates that God can't make a decision for himself. But that we'll talk about that later on. Anyway, so that's one effort here, that they're doing service by learning Torah and by praying. The second thing, some feel that they can't mingle, get contaminated by Israeli secular culture. They feel if they go into the army, it's like the melting pot there, and that some feel that they serve in the army, they'll lose their culture and their preservation of their Jewish traditions. All right, that's very strong feeling of them.
But Rabbi Gary,
Yes.
my entire family served. My grandfather fought in the War of Independence in 1948. He first served in the Israeli army. My uncle, who is religiously observant, served in just about every war since then. All of my cousins, who are all religiously observant, they are religious. They are observant of the Shabbat and the holidays.
By
They
whose standard?
serve, and they learned in yeshiva and they serve. My mother served in the Israeli armed forces. In fact, in 1956, my mother was in the army. She had 3 stripes, and she was one of Moshe Dayan's secretaries in the headquarters.
Right.
So I don't really understand.
I remember she told a story of how she knew when Moshe Dayan came close to the building, and he would throw pebbles at the window.
Right, Baila.
I remember when she told that story.
That's right. He would throw little pebbles to let them know he's coming in.
Right.
Right.
Anyway,
Gary, I don't understand how if they're religious and my family's religious, what exempts them when my family learns Torah and is religious too?
What makes
They
them
don't serve.
special?
What makes them special?
they're jumping ahead right now.
Okay,
I
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to give you their
All
side.
right, okay.
But the point, though, the immediate answer for that question is they don't look at you or people from B'nai Akiva or other people like myself as religious. So they are the true religious people of Israel. They are the true Zionists of Israel, not us. So we have to serve. When you call yourself religious and you're davening, that's your davening. It doesn't mean anything, okay? They are the true not pioneers, they're the true carriers of the Jewish faith here, and they have to learn. They're not telling other people to learn. They're saying their people, they're saying they're like the Levium. In the Torah, well, I'll get to it later on, we'll talk about who's exempt from the Torah. One of the groups that are exempt from the Torah, many people believe, are the Levium, the priestly group. And Torah talks about it. I'll explain to that later. So they feel that they're like the Levium of modern day. They just gave themselves their own title here. So anyway, but that's how they feel. So they don't look at the Hester program, which is a separate yeshiva program, which many friends of mine fought in. I have 3 nieces and nephews in Israel. One's going to Miluim, the reserves next week also. Even though he wears the kippah, he davens all the time here. They don't consider them religious. So whatever you say about your mother, your family, they don't look at you as being religious. Okay, let's move on. So now, first of all, there's another main issue. Many of them don't believe in the state of Israel until the Mashiach comes, the Messiah comes, and further, they believe it's heretical. It's wrong to support the state of Israel. So they say, if we can't support the state of Israel, why would we fight for it? It would be wrong to fight for a state that we don't believe in, that has no right to exist to begin with. That's another point of view. Okay.
Why do they live there?
Hold on. We'll talk about that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
I have similar feelings, and we'll talk about it. But you wanted me to give their
Both
side
sides. Yes.
story.
It's my
So
apology.
other Haredim believe in a theocracy, very much like Iran. All right, they believe in a serious theocracy where only their leaders will be in charge. They believe when the Israeli government finally comes about by God, because the Mashiach will come, then only the religious people, and they call religious people their own people. They don't consider anybody else to be religious. Look at a Hasidic sects. They fight among themselves. Lubavitch, Rosenberg family, Osama, some of them killing each other, okay? They don't trust each other's kashrut, their kosher food. So there's
I
a
heard
big
that they don't intermarry.
Right.
One Bubba sect will not marry with another Bubba sect.
100%. So the Haredim feel that they're the top of the line, like many people feel they're the top, and they believe in this theocracy here. And they also believe that they're waiting for God to bring the state of Israel, like I said, under the Mashiach. Okay, so that's another issue here. And then further, many Haredim feel that Israel is wrong. Why? Because they say, why should we fight for a government, for a state of Israel, who started the war to begin with? They blame Israel for starting all the wars with the Arabs. And they're saying, since they started the war, we're not going to fight in an unjust war. Now, what does it mean they started the war? Here's what they're talking about. They're talking about in the days of the Yeshuvim, before there was a state of Israel, Israel had no right to defend themselves against Arab attacks. Israel shouldn't have been chalutzim, pioneers. They shouldn't have been on the kibbutzim. It was Arab land. And if they have to live in Israel, it should be on Arab terms. And even no matter what the story was, they should live there, because they can't have a state of Israel until God wants them to have a state with the Mashiach coming.
Rabbi Gary, were not Jews that lived in Israel prior to the establishment of the state in the early 1900s. And there was always a Jewish presence throughout the thousands of years of the since the temples were destroyed. Were they not subject to attacks by Arab Muslim groups time and again?
100%. But they feel, and here's another point. This, to me, look, all these are, I don't agree with these principles, but this is what they're articulating. Even if I don't even think they believe this themselves, but I think they want to stay out of the army, and they want to get paid by the Israeli government to stay out of the army and learn Torah, what they call their Torah. My point is like this. They feel even if they were under attack, and even if they were going to be killed or hurt badly, then God decided that they need to be hurt and they have to do penance. They believe in this concept of penance, where they feel if people are punishing the Jews, even the Shoah, even the Holocaust, they feel God punished us because we're not keeping kashrut, we're not keeping Shabbat, and we're being punished for not keeping God's ways. And that's what they're articulating publicly. Whether they believe it or not, I don't know. Further, I give a few more examples of what some of them feel. Other Haredim feel that if Jews would continue, I just mentioned, if they suffer under the Arabs' occupation, it's God's plan that they must do penance for their sins, okay? Further, many claim that they can't serve in the Israeli army because the Israeli, even if they wanted to serve in the army, they can't, because Israel can't accommodate their religious beliefs. Example, they don't want to wear an army uniform. They only want to wear their Hasidic clothing here, which is preposterous, okay? The second thing is they don't want to see girls wearing pants. It's against their religious belief even to be in front of it here. They think
anywhere that they walk in the street and anywhere in the world, they're going to see it.
I'm just articulating what they're saying.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay? I'm not taking a stand.
Right.
You asked me to give you their point of view. Okay. So further, they think there's too much sexual promiscuity here. So they feel they don't want to be exposed to that. Further, they feel the kashrut that the Israeli army has is not up to their standard. Okay. So they would have to bring a special kashrut things that is going to be very difficult for the Israeli army to do. Okay. Then further, they don't want to have to fight on Shabbat. Okay. Now that's what they're articulating. Okay. Jewish law obviously mandates something totally different. Now others claim that they can't follow any army orders that contradict their religious leaders. So in other words, if a soldier tells them to go fight or to do this, even if it's on Shabbat or whatever they have to do, if their Rebbe specifically said something not to do, they shouldn't do it. Let me give you an example of this, which I was very upset. A few years ago, I used to go and, I'll mention my friend Flaky J. We all know Jake Strauss.
Oh,
Okay, so I was on a weekend speaking at it, and there was an Ask a Rabbi session. I love a Shalom Rabbi Bomzer. If you guys remember
Herbie
him,
Bomzer, I
Bomzer, yeah.
remember him. He was
he
a
was a
fine
great,
man.
was a great, very great man. He was
Yes.
very kind to me. He let me speak in front of the Baila Rabbanan Flatbush twice on security issues and other issues. I really looked up to him. And he invited me, even though I was a young rabbi at the time, to come in and sit. I said, I don't want to sit with all these guys. They have so much more experience and learning than I do. He goes, no, you need to sit on the panel.
Well, you're a
So,
rabbi as well.
This was during Gush Katif. Now, do you remember Gush Katif when Israel gave back part of the land from Gaza at the
Sure.
time? Anyway, it was a terrible thing because people were crying, they're giving back. But Sharon made his decision, whether you like him or not. I happen to have met Sharon purpose. I was honored to have met him, spoke to him, and had a conversation with him. I was very impressed, and from the history that I know about him,
But after he had given up the Gaza Strip entirely
Yeah.
in 2005,
Yeah.
and that was a total leaving. There was no more occupation because they left over everything. They walked out and said, "Here, it's yours. Enjoy." But he never had peace from it.
I know that, but that's
later on.
a different topic. I'm just making a point with Gush
Right.
Katif, religiously what's going on.
Okay.
There were many rabbis saying Israel has no right to give back Jewish land. Now, the army had an order. Sharon, as the prime minister, gave an order. We must evacuate. We don't know what he was doing behind the scenes, but he gave a command decision. He went down to his generals and went down to the army, to the police. And some people were deciding, and this was the question in front of the audience, not only here, but in Israel, do we have to follow the orders? And unfortunately, including Rabbi Bomzer, every rabbi said no, they should fight it. The soldiers should resist and should not follow the orders. Now, can you imagine? So I myself was stunned by them saying this. So I said, with all due respect to my fellow rabbis, by all this learning, you're all wrong. I said, can you imagine if we have a command structure and there's an army here that everyone wants to follow their own Rebbe and do what they want, we'll have no army and the Arabs will overrun us here. We have a command structure, and by Jewish law, you have to follow a command structure. You know what I'm saying? You can't just disregard it here. It's not your choice to do this here. And first of all, but people don't even realize that Gaza is not really part of Israel to begin with. People don't even know what the borders are of the state of Israel. So that's another.
Wait. Whoa. I was under the impression, I was told that Gaza does come within the biblical borders.
It depends who you ask. I don't think so. From what I read about, Gaza was always by the Pelishtim, and it wasn't one of the territories that God gave us in the Torah. But that's another topic we can talk about. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have occupied it because it was a security force. So from my point of view, I wasn't there and all the decisions were being made, but it kept the force away from us. You know what I'm saying? So it was a good defense mechanism.
It was a buffer zone.
It was a buffer zone anyway. But aside from that, so we can't have different groups of people, like what happened recently with the Israeli courts. I'm not going to go through the whole story that, people were arguing about how far the courts should be able to have power in the government here, but people protested for months against Israel, their own people. But that doesn't mean, can you imagine if Reform Jews or other Chiloni, other secular Jews said, well, based on religious or secular principles here, we're not going to fight the army because we don't like what Israel's deciding. We'll have no army, we'll have no protection for the state of Israel. You can't say I'm not going to fight because I don't like this religious principle here. There'll be nothing. And that's what the Haredim are doing. Let me just finish up some of their other complaints here, or their perspective here. Some of them actually make this claim that Haredim claim that the army doesn't really need them, that they are using the current manpower. They aren't using the current manpowers properly. In other words, they're accusing Israel of, we don't really need them. They're claiming that Israel militarily is using the military as a weapon against their community to break them, to make them more secularist. And there's a religious war going on, and Israel doesn't really need them. This is what they're articulating here, okay? So you don't have to believe it or not, but this is what they're saying. Others claim Israel, again, when they're saying they're using Israel violently to break up the religious spirit on purpose. So by resisting, it's like they're like freedom fighting. That's how they feel. They feel they're under siege. Now, it's very interesting to note, there's some historical background for this, not in Israel, in Russia. Many of these Jews come from Tsarist Russia, Eastern Europe, Poland, and the Tsar at the time, Tsarist Russia, would conscript everybody, especially Jews. They were forced to serve in the army here. So they're using that as a pretense also that we went through this in Russia. We were forced to serve in the Tsarist Russia, and many of the Jews never came back to their communities. They became secular. Now,
that's not the Jewish Israeli army.
I got it. I'm just trying to tell you.
Okay,
when I say their perspective, I don't even believe it's their perspective. It's what they're articulating publicly for their public relations campaign. Okay, some may truly believe it. I don't know, but this is what they're putting out. Another thing they're putting out is that many feel they should have immunity from the army, like I mentioned before, like the Levium had, because they view themselves as a priestly tribe. They basically gave themselves their own kahuna status. Go figure it. That's what they did. Okay. Then they feel like they have their own sovereign state within Israel. They want to have their own laws. They don't want to be like, for instance, if you walk down their streets, you have to wear a certain dress code here. The streets do not belong to them. They want to feel they're living within their own. We had similar things in the United States with other groups also.
Yes, we did recently with COVID, when they decided, where the whole world was told to wear masks, and they decided they don't have to wear masks in their communities.
Well, I'm going further. Even there are groups of Indians here who believe that even though the government gave them certain rights, they wanted to expand the rights and take over more territory that they want back. Black groups felt compelled that they actually wanted one state to be theirs, or they wanted to have a white free state. There's a lot of things that happen in the United States and other places around the world. Okay, so this is not unprecedented. But anyway, further. So those are just several ways that they're articulating publicly. Now, I don't believe any of this. I think it is very wrong here. See, there are Torah laws that clearly defy what they're saying here. There are so many laws. Lo tamod al dam re'acha blindly screams out, don't stand idly by your brother's blood. It has nothing to do whether you want the state of Israel or not. They're killing Jews. And the only way to stop them is to go into the army and fight them. There's no other way. There's no other way you can stop them. And they see Jews. I see soldiers, and I've lost people that I know before in past wars here, and they're dying here, and they see them dying, and they see them wounded here.
And Rabbi Gary, didn't you just say a few minutes ago, that they're making a claim that by their staying in their synagogues or in their yeshivot, that they are, by doing their learning and by doing their prayers, they are in fact aiding and assisting the Israeli army, and they are helping save soldiers. They are in fact, in some way, they believe that they are fighting part of the battle as well, just in a different way.
Good. So who selected them to do the study? Maybe the other Jews, maybe the Chiloni should do some studying. Let's get them learning, put them in a learning program, and let the other guys go out and fight. Who decided to make them boss? Who decided that they're the new Levium, they're the new Kohanim? They bestowed it on themselves here. It's preposterous here. They're seeing Jews die, and they're aiding and abetting here. And there's another concept called rodef. You know, if someone comes to kill you, you're supposed to kill them first. It says in Talmud Sanhedrin. It talks all about this here. You have this clear law. People are coming to kill us. There's nothing more important than fighting back here. And you have to fight within the structure that we have right now. There are other laws like Dinei Machuta Midina, that you have to listen to the laws of the land, any country that you live in here. Even this country here, sometimes they don't want to listen to the law of the land, they'll go to jail. There are laws in the Torah that say you must go unless some government tells you to do something clearly anti-Jewish, like eat non-kosher food or something. But no government is telling them to do this here. They're ignoring every principle of Jewish law.
Gary, you just mentioned three of them about rodef, and you mentioned that you have to kill them first if they're coming to kill you.
Right.
You mentioned lo tamod al dam re'echa. You may not stand by while you're idly while people are killing your own or hurting your own.
And lifnei tovia lo titen machshol, and it says don't put a stumbling block before the blind people.
Rabbi Gary, these are supposedly Torah learning Jews. How would they respond to these? I mean, don't people tell them, what about this, and this that's written in the Torah? How would they respond? Their perspective. How do they answer these things?
Unfortunately, many of them don't know Torah themselves. See, what happens is, I use the word Torah, mean the Chumshei Torah, the 5 books of Moses. Then there's the oral law. There's the Mishnah, which is even the oral law fights with among themselves.
Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim is the Torah.
The
Old Testament and the prophets and the kings, whatever.
Right, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim for sure. Right, but then there's afterwards the Mishnah and the Talmud. Now the Talmud is a combination of the Mishnah and the Gemara, which was written over 600 years. It's not even accurate mostly because it debates itself. So the point of the matter is that a lot of them don't look at the Torah as the ultimate. They look at the oral law. And even the oral they don't even look at, because what they do is they look at medieval commentaries here, like Rashi, the Radak, Rambam, you know what I'm saying? And they're using that first to supersede the actual Torah law. And when you debate the Torah law with them, they say, you don't really know what it means. I'm studying Torah for about 50 years of my life, You know,
You're an
besides,
ordained rabbi, of course.
and no, but it's more than that though. I was a youth director and youth leader for 30 years in different shuls. I ran around the country.
I understand you had a pulpit of your own. You had a shul of your own as well.
I had two, okay? And the point is that I studied Torah for a long time. I know something. I don't know everything, but the point is I'm entitled to my opinion after so many years, and many other people feel the same way. But they just dismiss it. Well, you're not really a religious Jew because you don't dress like we do. You don't do what we do. So they're basically saying the rest of you are not really Jews. We're not the right Jews, and we're the right Jews. The point is they're doing everything possible to get out of conscription, to get out of defending the state of Israel. And they want to hold on to their way. And holding on to their way is not just about Masorah, about tradition. It's about power. It's about money, politics, and power. They're controlling parts of the government here, even though they're a smaller group, but they're about 17% of the men are not serving. 70% of men would make a huge difference. People don't realize it in the Israeli army. We're under a grave attack. The state of Israel is in an existential fight right now. They're being attacked from Lebanon. They're being attacked from Syria. From
It's from all over. Yeah.
So there are several places they're being attacked, and even with Israel from the Shomron, the Shomron, which people call the West Bank, they're being attacked for the first time now. People in reserve now have to serve longer. They're leaving their families, their wives and kids. They can't be there. Men who serve normally 3 years are being held up for 3.5, 4 years now, all because they don't want to serve here and relieve some of that burden here because they feel they're Torah. Now, can you imagine that Hamas is fighting and they're saying they're helping more? That's insulting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you think that your prayers, that God is so stupid, he doesn't know what's flying whatsoever, but you praying to him will signal him to change his mind because HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't really know what's going on, but their prayers and their learning is going to sway Hashem to really secretly save everybody.
Rabbi Gary.
Achdut.
Yes.
Unity is what's going to sway HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Listen to me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us laws to defend ourselves. Let me tell you about Torah law, okay? The Torah doesn't make, beside the Levium, there's no exception for any group not to serve in the army. There's no such thing as learning Torah as not to serve. There's only 4 things that Torah says in Devarim. It says very clearly. It says one thing: if you're building if you just got married, you get a year off. It's just a year off. It's a deferment. If you put a vineyard up, you get a year off. If you build a house, you get a year off. That's it. Those are deferments. And there's only one other way that you don't serve in the army at all. The Torah says if you're a coward. If you're a coward. If you're a coward, the Torah says you'll spread cowardice and people will run away and defeat us.
The Haredim must be cowards.
No, they don't, but they're not using an argument. If they want to use an argument, that's a possibility here.
Can't all get away with an argument like that.
Exactly.
You can say it, but they can't all say we are a community of cowards.
What a busha, what an embarrassment that you have these young, able-bodied men and they just don't want to go and do the service for the country. Why live in that country if you're not going to defend it?
But I'll tell you why they're living, because now it's not only they're living in the country, they're getting paid not to defend it. People don't realize it, but they're getting stipends from the Israeli government for not working and for not serving in the army. It's preposterous here. The Israeli government is actually catering to their needs because the current government wants to stay in government because they have it. Later on, I'm going to give you some. I'll just jump ahead later on, but some things. What I think some people that may be too harsh, but very basically here. If they don't want to serve, there should be serious consequences here. They're violating Jewish law and certainly Israeli law, and they have only the contempt of all the people around the world, especially from their religious community, etc., from me included. If they don't serve in the army, all the yeshiva funding should stop immediately, and that's what's going to happen. That's what the Supreme Court ruled. They said, listen, we're not going to lock up. We can lock you up, even here. If you don't serve in the army, when there's a draft, you could be locked up. But we're not going to start locking up Jews in Israel. But we can stop you from getting funded here. So what do? Their response was to turn over cars, attack the army, attack the police. It's a shanda beyond belief here.
Rabbi Gary, I always have this, tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right. I have a more simple perspective on it. I simply say like this: look, we are in this physical material world.
Right.
And we are taught that we have to live. We do our prayers, we do what we can spiritually, but we still have to live b'derech hateva, which means in this natural world, the way the world is.
Right.
And that means in addition to praying, which is very critically important, we still have to go out and do our part, serve, go in the army, fight, do whatever we have to. Physically, we don't ein somchin ala nes. We do not rely on miracles. We hope for them, but we don't rely on them.
But that's your
But
perspective.
that doesn't mean anything to them.
No, because they are doing, I'll reiterate what I said before. They are doing what they think they should be doing. One is they're doing something, I say, a positive thing by praying and by learning Torah. And Lotas say, they're saying, listen, we can't commit any hate. We don't want to do any sins because by going there, we'll be committing sins by being surrounded, by being contaminated. But let me just finish. I think they should lose their voting privileges. That would be tremendous. That means their Torah parties here, that they call Torah parties, would have no more influence over government here, and that will take them out right away. You don't serve in the army, you don't, unless you have some debilitating reason. And by the way, you should know, I know people who begged to serve in the army when the army wouldn't take them because they had cerebral palsy. They said, I could do something. And they say, no, you don't have to serve. No, I want to serve. There are people who fight to serve in the army. They want the kavod to serve in the army, and they're doing
It was, my mother used to say that if somebody was not able to serve, it was a shame. They tried to sweep it under the rug. There was a reason. Right. They find excuses. Gary, I have a little bit of a problem.
Last thing I'll say,
I don't like the idea of going to extremes and taking away their right to vote. For example,
right,
what happened over the last year with the Supreme Court?
Right.
You know, look, they elected, the people of Israel by majority elected a more conservative government. Now, the way things were on the Israeli Supreme Court was that the leftist, totally leftist, ridiculously leftist Supreme Court would go on as such in perpetuity because the leftist judges would continue to appoint their own leftist judges. Whereas the change in the law would only allow for a review that would then somehow be able to stop them from taking these leftist judges, and which would be more in consonance with what the Israeli people who voted in a conservative government want.
At the moment, at the moment here, it's listen, there's two sides to this story here. You know what I'm saying? And first of all, I want to say,
now you're taking away their, if you knock out, then the left is not good either. They're not the right ones either to control.
Only because this suits your philosophical belief now and political belief now. But how about it was the other way around? And in fact, those judges were supporting the right here, then you would have no tie. You would have no complaint against them, okay? It's only because they don't do what you want to do. There has to be a separate entity that puts people in check. The problem is there's no constitution in Israel. No, you need to have a constitution, and that's the problem here. But on the other hand, New Zealand, United Kingdom have the same type of parliamentary situation as well. So it's Israel, but they're saying they're taking away democracy. They're not. But that's another story. We can debate that either way. But right now, those people still go fight.
Gary, I just want you to begin winding down, because what I want to do, Gary,
you're going to have to wrap it up.
Next week, I think there's a lot to talk about this subject. I think it's a critical
We should do
subject.
a part. We'll do a part
if it's okay
two.
with Baila, I think we can cut it into two parts. But let's find a way, Gary, to wrap up part one and to continue with the part B. Okay.
To be continued.
Right. So
I think,
Rabbi Gary.
Okay. In short, here, I love Jews. I don't want to attack any Jews at all. And there are many Jews I think are taking advantage of this, but I think not to put them in jail and deport people. I've heard the way is a massive educational program. I'm doing something now. I teach a group of Hasidim from the Islamic community in martial arts. A lot of the Rebbeim don't even want them coming. I have Hasidim coming like this. Oh, I am a Zionist. I don't care what they say. These are Islamic Hasidim. I'm not trying to influence anybody. I just want Jews to be protected and be safe. That's my main goal right now, and to be healthy. I think if we start showing them and doing things with the community here, we can do joint projects together. First of all, the Asama, for instance, do great things. Even though I don't agree with a lot of things, they started Hatzalah. They deliver food. And I was in hospitals. They deliver food. They do a lot of great things that people don't know about here. I think we need to support them in several things, and other things we can be critical. But we have to start working, like Soya said, by doing joint things. Now, safety and health, everyone agrees on, okay? And that's something we need to promote, that we can work on jointly. And as we get to know each other more jointly together, fine. I have some Hasidim who told me right to my face, I don't have to train in martial arts. We don't have to do counter-terror training. Hashem will protect us. Really. I mean, this is absurd thinking. I said, then don't lock your door at night here, and don't go to the doctor anymore, because Hashem will protect you. And I say,
again, we don't rely on miracles. We have to take natural steps.
I'll go further. If you believe so much that God will protect you, I said, I'll tell you what, Don't take any money from the Israeli government here. You're not working. God will send you money. You'll just wake up and it'll be like the man. It'll just come up in your house, okay? And rely on getting paid that way, okay? The bottom line is we need an education, not to mock them publicly, but is a severe education. Now everyone's on the internet.
An awakening of civic duty.
I love that. That's exactly the words I was looking for. I'm going to have to use that. Awakening of civil duty here.
That should be the theme of the next
In
episode.
fact, what I'm doing, I'll just leave you one last message. When the Global Jewish National Guard here, we want a national Jewish Sherut Le'ami program where people have to put 1 year of service in every country they're living in, even outside Israel. And I spoke to the head of the Sherut Le'ami program in Israel about 6 weeks ago, a few weeks ago after the Israeli parade here. And he loved the idea and he wants to work with us to get Jews to say, I'm going to put 1 year of my time in to whether it's working on Soya, whether it's helping Jewish kids learn, whatever it is here. Do something for Jewish people, and it'll be good for all of us.
National service.
Thank
Rabbi
you so much,
Gary.
Gary. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
and
it has
and
been an
for
honor, Rabbi Sensei Gary, and we look forward to part B because there's really so much ground to cover.
Sure.
Layla, is there anything you'd like to add to our wind up tonight?
Can I just say
yeah.
one thing?
Yes, please, Rabbi Gary.
go ahead, Gary.
Is it okay if I give my phone number and email in case anybody would
Oh,
like?
by all means, please
Absolutely,
do.
absolutely.
If anybody would like to get involved with the Jewish National Guard, you can reach me directly at 917-916-4681, 917-916-4681. Email Gavriel@AOL.com, GAV as in Victor, RIAEL@AOL.com, or our website, www.jewishnationalguard.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gary. And we're going to get solutions in part 2 of this show. Thank you very
Sounds
much.
great.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Stay safe, everybody, and we will see you next week.